More and more, I've been receiving comments and questions about the f.i.r.e. movement. And if you're not familiar with f.i.r.e., it's an acronym that stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And just so there's no confusion about where my bias lies, I'm going to read a tweet that I published a while back. I'm a huge fan of the f.i.r.e. movement, except for the narcissism, the hoarding, the selfishness, the lack of generosity, the life of leisure, the not impacting others, and the lack of meaning and purpose. Other than those small details, I'm a big fan. Okay, that was indeed a bit snarky, but I don't think there's much question of where I stand, and I want you to know where I stand. I'm not a fan of the f.i.r.e. movement. This movement isn't new to me. I've been following along closely for more than a decade as I was trying to figure out who I am and who I wanted to be. And ultimately, I couldn't get on board. Back then, it was a gut feeling that told me that something wasn't quite right, but over time, that conviction has grown and grown. Now, first, I should summarize what f.i.r.e. even is. In short, it's making some very profound decisions today, saving a significant portion of your income over a period of time, using that excess income to accumulate significant investment assets over a short period of time. Maybe it's stock market, maybe it's real estate, maybe it's something else. And then it'll allow you to quit your job and live off the income produced by the assets and go enjoy the remaining days of your life with leisure. Well, this is the basic definition of f.i.r.e. I need to caveat, not all people who identify with the f.i.r.e. movement subscribe to every one of these steps. It's confusing, I know. There's lean f.i.r.e., barista f.i.r.e., coast f.i.r.e., fat f.i.r.e. There's probably more f.i.r.es than I'm even aware of. For a really good summary of what these are, I recommend you check out this article that I'm going to link below. Now, some people who follow f.i.r.e. movement just want to gain some financial stability. That's awesome. Others want to gain some more freedom or flexibility from their current job. That's good stuff. And some use it as a way to continue to hold themselves accountable to disciplined habits and a promising financial future. I can't argue with that. Those things refer more to the f.i., the financial independence part of f.i.r.e. My criticism in this video, it pertains to the r.e., the retire early portion of f.i.r.e., as well as the behaviors it takes to aggressively pursue something like that. I believe the entire notion of retiring early is a huge mistake. Deeply embedded in the desire for an ever earlier retirement is the association that work equals bad and leisure equals good. And I couldn't disagree more with this. Yeah, some jobs suck. We've had them, that's a fact. But the solution isn't to simply say that work equals bad, but rather to ditch the depressing, unfulfilling job and replace it with work that matters. Let's just say that we don't even hate our job, but maybe we tolerate it. It's just okay. It's not terrible, but it's certainly not a value add in your life, nor something that you wake up each morning excited to do. Even that scenario of mere tolerance is unacceptable. That may have been fine in the 1800s and most of the 1900s, but we live in a world today where anything is possible. I know a guy who makes 6 figures playing video games. Now that's work, but he loves it. My business partner Cole, he's a filmmaker. That's work, but he loves it. My friend Erin, she's a graphic designer. That's work, but she loves it. I have several friends who are teachers. That's work, but they love it. All of these examples, they flip our culture's toxic perspective of work on its head, and instead of work equals bad, it's work equals good. All work matters, but not all work matters to us, to me, to you. I would hate to play video games all day, or be a filmmaker, or be a graphic designer, or be a school teacher. For me, those jobs wouldn't be a good fit. I'd probably hate them. That's why I'm a financial coach, a speaker, and a writer. I wake up each and every day excited for what I'm about to do. That's why I'm doing it. And that's why my friends do what they're doing. And if I ever get to the point where I'm not excited for what I'm doing, it will be time for me to do something different. Not to find the fastest way to quit. See, the part about work that we don't give full credit to is that work gives us meaning and purpose. Not all of our meaning and purpose, but a lot of it. And when we're doing good work that we're made to do, it only adds value to our life. Not to mention the lives of those who we serve with our work. So when people race to quit working, I believe they're robbing themselves of the deep and fulfilling experience of work that matters to them. But it also robs everyone else of the results of their good work that will never be done now. Some of the most influential people in our society long ago could have achieved f.i.r.e., but instead of riding off into the sunset, they decided to continue to serve society. Bill Gates, one of the richest people in the world, could have rode off into the sunset and pursued f.i.r.e. when he left Microsoft. But instead, he and his wife built an organization that's literally changing the world. And despite being some of the richest people in the entire world, they're probably working harder now than they've ever worked before. Taylor Swift. She could have walked away from her music career to pursue FIRE many years ago at a really young age, but instead she continues to entertain and inspire millions of fans across the world. Gary Vaynerchuk, who a lot of you probably know as Gary V. He could have easily have set himself up on a tropical island and lived the good life to pursue FIRE years ago. But instead, he continues to build impactful organizations, and he's trying to train up the next generation of business leaders all around the world. Or this guy in this photo. This is Josh McDowell, who's a world-renowned evangelist. He's authored more than 150 books, including one that has sold more than 27 million copies, and another one that was named one of the 40 most influential books of the 20th century. That's accomplishment. I was blessed to have an opportunity to have breakfast with him a couple years ago with a couple other guys. And on that day, he was just a few months shy of his 80th birthday. And during our time together, I was most fascinated by the passion and energy that he felt towards his work. And he revealed to me that he's on the road 320 days a year. That's 27 days a month on average, on airplanes, in hotel rooms, on stage, in meetings, for a guy who's about ready to turn 80. By the time he turned 65, he'd experienced one of the most profound and influential careers of anyone who has served in this type of ministry. And the world says, by age 65, it's time to hang it up. Go enjoy your life, man. Go enjoy it. You need to live a little bit. Instead of retiring, he continued to pursue work that matters to him. And here's the crazy part. He's made more impact in the last 15 years than he did in the prior 40. Should he have hung it up and to simply enjoy life? Well, I'm not sure I've ever met anyone who enjoys their life more than he seems to enjoy his. He understands the secret. Work equals good. Bill Gates, Taylor Swift, Gary Vaynerchuk, Josh McDowell, 4 people who could have pursued FIRE. Had any one of them actually have done it, we would be worse off for it. And the same applies to me, and it applies to you. We all have something amazing to give to this world. And a number as silly as age shouldn't determine when we stop making an impact. So yes, I'm making the case that an earlier the better retirement, it's not the answer. And not only is it not the secret to happiness, but I believe it will cause the opposite to happen for us. However, there's an even bigger risk than retiring early. The habits and behaviors that naturally occur in the pursuit of an early retirement. Well, there's a formula for how do we retire early. And here's roughly how it works if you don't know. First, we need to figure out how much money do we need to live on. And the lower the lifestyle, the lower this number can be. Let's say, for example, the number is $4,000 a month. Today, $4,000 a month is what we would need to spend to live a normal life, the life we want to live. Next, multiply this by 12 to get an annual number. So $4,000 times 12, $48,000. Next, multiply this number by 1.25 to account for taxes. It's not perfect, but it's a rough number. So 48,000 times 1.25 equals 60,000. Fourth, we need to adjust this annual number for inflation for when we'd like to retire. So maybe we assume 2.5% inflation. And let's say that we think we might want to retire in 10 years. So we take $60,000, we put it into a financial calculator, and we calculate what that number would be 10 years from now at 2.5%. And so we'll round it, we'll call it $77,000. So $60,000 today is roughly equivalent to what $77,000 will be 10 years from now. Last, we need to multiply this number by 25, which is the inverse of the 4% rule. So $77,000 times 25 equals $1.925 million, so just shy of $2 million. So our marching orders are clear. If we can accumulate a portfolio of roughly $2 million 10 years from now, no matter how old we are then theoretically we can retire, live a life of leisure, and always have the income roughly equivalent to what $4,000 a month take home today feels like. Okay, so here's where the rubber meets the road, and where I deeply, deeply despise, and despise is the right word, all that FIRE stands for when we talk about retiring early. And we're talking about the full definition of FIRE, not just the FI part, the full definition. There's only one way to reach this newly instituted finish line. Save, save, save. Or maybe I should say, hoard, hoard, hoard. Every dollar put into investments gets you closer to your dream of an early retirement. And every dollar not put into investments, it only slows you down. So if that's true, here are the natural byproducts of aggressively pursuing FIRE. Less spending on enjoyment, less stuff, less trips, less everything. That's not always a bad thing, but it can get very, very toxic if we take it too far. We all have friends and family that we know who fill the role of cheapskate or tightwad in our life. Less generosity. In many cases, it means little to no generosity in our life because we need that money to invest. Number 3, living each day with a focus on what life will look like 10 years from now, but with little regard or much less regard for what life is like today. Which then gets us to the next one, which is staying at a crappy job or merely tolerate a job just for the money. Sure, they may hate their job, but it's only 10 more years, it's only 7 more years, it's only 13 more years. So they'll live in general misery for years, all because they know that the finish line is getting closer to where they can finally start enjoying life. Lastly, their life becomes more about them and less about those who they have the potential to impact. Because we're doing it all for us. We're trying to save for us. Last year, at the age of 38, as I was contemplating the idea of leaving my awesome, pretty high-paying career, one of my trusted mentors said something to me. He said, "You know, Travis, if you would just stay for 2 or 3 more years and you were really focused, you could leave your job and never have to work again for the rest of your life." What he said was indeed true, but I could have easily have achieved FIRE many years ago. Instead, I gave generously because it's not about me, it's about serving those who I wish to serve. And part of that for me was just giving generously. And he was right. If I were to dedicate myself to it, I could have easily have achieved FIRE in 2 to 3 short years. But doing so would require me to delay the good work that I needed to do. Doing so would have required me to hoard and stop being generous. And doing so would have forced me to stop serving those who I needed to serve. I didn't want to lose 2 to 3 years of that, simply for the pursuit of more wealth and an early retirement. After all, I was leaving my job so that I could do even more good work. And not long after that conversation, I left my job, I took a 90% pay cut, and it was the best decision I ever made. Not because making a lot of money is bad, it's not, but because it allowed me to passionately and aggressively pursue the work that mattered to me. And I'm so glad that I did. Less than a year after I left my job, our world was hit by a global pandemic, and so many people around me were scared, overwhelmed, and confused by all of this financial stuff. And I was there to walk alongside of them. And it would never have happened had I listened to my selfish instincts of pursuing more and more money and an earlier retirement. And God willing, my dream is to be doing work that matters to me well into my 80s, just like Josh McDowell. Again, if you're just trying to be financially responsible, to pursue the F.I.R.E. in FIRE, find a healthy balance in your spending, your saving, and your giving, this video isn't addressing you. But if you're actively pursuing the R.E. piece of FIRE, the retire earlier, the better, I hope you at least think about what I said. You, Bill Gates, Taylor Swift, you have something in common. You all have something amazing to offer the world. Are you going to contribute your gifts and make a difference? Or are you going to ride off into the sunset? I, for one, I'm praying for the former. Thank you so much for watching. We hope this added value to your life. And if it did, it would mean the world to us if you would like, share, or even subscribe to our channel. And while you're here, check out some of our other content. And then down below, you can even find a link to Meaning Over Money, which is our online financial course for young adults, where we teach people how to pursue a life of meaning and not for the money.